Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from sophielawson.com, and this is episode 248 of the Sophie Art Podcast, which is a little podcast to do about the art and tings with me co-host lilDENNiS. lilDENNiS is with us today, and this one here is going to be a Dump and Doodle, where I do some doodling whilst brain dumping about a topic. And today's topic is going to be the spirit realm / the dream state. So let's get into this one. lilDENNiS is going to get us in. So this is actually, I think this podcast is going to be going up on the 1st of January 2023, which is quite weird. The year's gone very quickly, or very quickly. Yeah. One of the best things about this year has been the dream realm. It's been cool. So I've got my dream diary with me, and I've also got the book The Art of Dreaming by Castaneda, and I've got my little sketchbook. So, the last couple nights I've had a bunch of... last night it was like an out-of-body experience, and the night before was... the night before is that thing again where it's like you're in a classroom being taught deep secrets of the universe. It's a very strange... I like those though. But I've got a bunch of topics for this one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to go through them. But also, I don't really know where this podcast is going to go. I'm just going to empty the thoughts. So I want to talk about false awakenings again, and I talk about them a lot because I feel like false awakenings are key to something. And false awakenings is where you go to sleep, you wake up, and then you think you're awake, but you're actually still asleep. So it's like dreams within dreams. Now I think these false awakenings are trying to tell us something, and I think that false awakenings are linked to the death state. I think when we die, we're going to sort of have a false awakening sensation. But I'll talk more about that in a minute. Some of the other things is the out-of-body experience, and there's a TV show on Netflix called Behind Her Eyes, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. Also I want to talk about sun gazing and how it turns into like a hexagon, and also there's like a shimmering effect, which is quite strange. I want to talk about the process of dying and how I think it's like a false awakening. Also I want to talk about how it's like the dream realm is set up for us to forget the dreams, and I'm wondering if that's actually mimicking the waking state as well. So when we die, is life set up to make us forget our life? So if you put the work in the dream state, you can start remembering your dreams when you wake up. So I'm wondering if you could also remember your life when you die. Also got this little sort of it's a funny thing really. I was thinking, imagine if you die, you've got all the secrets to the universe, so you come back to tell everyone, and you come back as a baby. So you've got all this information inside of you, but you can't say nothing, because all you've got is like baby speak. You can't write or nothing, so basically, and you can't really move or nothing. So in a strange way, it's like you would be trapped inside of this baby with all of this information, and you can't get none of it out. It's almost like tragically funny. So, and then the other thing I've put here is, I've put by the time the baby has the skills to talk, the dream realm has acted as like a bunch of false awakenings. In other words, each time the baby goes to sleep at night, I would look at that as like, that's one more chance of the baby forgetting, because it keeps happening. In the end, by the time the baby's got the skills to talk, it's like forgotten everything. Like how when you wake up from a dream, there's a period where the dream it's not very long though. It's like a few seconds sometimes. You write it in the dream diary, and then after about a minute, the dream like sort of just evaporates. So if you haven't wrote it down, you can still feel the dream, but you can't really explain it because it's gone. But you know that you had a dream. So I'm wondering if the baby ends up like that, which is what we are like. I feel like a lot of us, we know that there's something happening, but it's like one of those dreams where you can feel it, you can feel that something happened, but you can't. It's vanished. But I don't think it has. This is something I was thinking about yesterday. I keep having these weird sort of deja vu dreams where I'm dreaming and I'm in locations that are from previous dreams which I'd forgotten about. So what I'm thinking to myself is, and also during the day when I'm at work or something, I keep remembering dreams. Again, so what I'm thinking is, I think when you wake up, even if you haven't remembered the dream, I feel like you've still got inside of you the memory of the dream. Even if you can't remember it, I almost see it as like, it's almost like, to me, it's just like a bunch of data, like a database or something. And what happens is when you wake up, inside of you is all these dreams that you had, but there's like a barrier. But they're inside of you. So what happens is when you wake up, the barrier is very faint. So you can actually you can go and pull the dream out and bring it into the waking state. But after a certain amount of time, the barrier it sort of it becomes solid, and then you can't really get in there. But every so often, the memory somehow slips through, which is a bit like, to me, it reminds me a bit of like hypnosis. Like when they go into hypnosis, basically everything's inside of you. All these experiences are inside of us, but most of them we can't access. But it doesn't mean they're not there. And I'm feeling like the dream is like that. And this is also what I'm thinking False Awakenings is. It's the same sort of thing where you're having a dream, you're waking up, so you write the dream out, you're still actually asleep. So you have to wake yourself back up again. Now each time you're waking yourself back up, to me it's like there's these barriers going up between each of the dreams. So by the time you actually wake up, the chances are that you've lost some of the dream that you wanted to. What happens is you have a dream experience, maybe going out of body or something, and you think, I've got to wake myself up to. So you wake yourself up, but it's like the dream sometimes stops you waking up. Almost as if there's multiple ways that I look at this. Either the dream doesn't want you to remember it, so it's like it's putting all these false awakenings in. But something else that I'm noticing is, last night especially, and I've noticed it a lot, I keep having dreams where I'm dreaming, I'm sort of aware that I'm dreaming, and I will go to sleep. So I'm having a lot of dreams where I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming about going to sleep. And then what happens is, when I sort of become lucid and wake myself up, I'm actually having to go through a bunch of false awakenings to finally wake up. So what I'm thinking is, I think I've said this before, what if when you go to sleep you go into well, now this is another thing as well. In the book The Art of Dreaming by Castaneda, he's been talking about something which made me think about something, which is there's multiple realms. So what I'm thinking to myself is, when you first go to sleep, you're sort of inside of yourself. It's almost like you're dreaming within your universe. But if you go to sleep inside of that universe, it's almost like you're going inside of like another universe within that universe. So what I'm thinking is, if let's say you've gone to sleep 5 times inside of a dream, you're now like 5 levels deep. This sounds very much like the film Inception. But the thing is, that's my experience at the moment. Is like, I've just started noticing that there's a relationship between me dreaming about going to sleep and having false awakenings. So I'm finding that very interesting. But something that I put in my original notes was, when I was talking about this baby ends up, by the time the baby's got the skills to talk, it's basically, it's almost like this barrier's gone up. So it's still got the all of the information, but there's like it can't access it directly. So what I'm thinking is, when we start like doing lucid dreaming and meditation and stuff, what you're sort of doing is, it's almost like you're either removing that barrier so you can access what's behind it. Because what I'm thinking as well is, I'm thinking everybody has got like all these experiences, but then I think that you can somehow access other people's experiences as well. So it's not just like linear. I think it's going all over the place, because this is another thing. Each of these universes, if you're going into different realities when you're sleeping, the same thing's going to be happening to these dream characters or these dream figures. So when you have a false awakening, what I'm thinking is that the person that you woke up as, which wasn't actually you, well, I think when you wake yourself up and go up the next level, I'm wondering if that person who you was before still exists, and maybe they're going through their own experience. So you start wondering if it's possible to go to sleep at night and basically end up going into the same person that you was the night before. So this is what's making me think about these memories. I've got these dream memories inside of me which I don't remember. But so what I'm wondering is like, are we through our life going to sleep at night and actually sort of taking over the same people in our dreams, sort of like a possession, but maybe it's just all aspects of us, but each of these people is actually doing the same thing as us. I think I've talked about this before as well. So what happens is, the dream person your dream self looks at you as like your higher self. So then what that means is that we have got our own higher self. So when we die, we're going to basically just be waking up. But if that's what it is, what that means is when you die and you actually wake up, I feel like it must mean that you'll be able to come back into the dream realm. So you would be able to go back. I don't see why, although maybe what happens is when you die, maybe what happens is this barrier thing goes up. So maybe there's like once you die, there's like a barrier that goes up, which stops you coming back into these physical bodies or something. That's another thing. When you have like an out-of-body experience or one of these really vivid lucid dreams, it is more real than real. You can feel the gravel, like the ground, and the senses are just that it's way more sensory than in the waking state. So I start thinking to myself, what's it going to be like when you've died? Is it going to be like a sensory overload? It's quite exciting, really. But what I was putting in my notes was, I said, by the time this baby has got the skills to talk, it's lost access to all of the information. And it reminded me of there's two things. One, when you wake up, and you've got the memory of the dream, but it's gone. So I'm wondering, what if when you die, if you don't remain lucid through the death phase, what if you die and you sort of wake up and you've got this memory of being who you are, like you've got this memory of being Sophie, but you can't really remember it. So it's very much like a dream. Whereas if you can stay awake during the death phase, you can wake up and remember Sophie. That'd be quite mad. But so that's the first thing. This baby losing the information, it reminds me a bit of waking up with the memory of the dream but not being able to access it. And it also reminds me of psychedelic experience. In the psychedelic realm, you hear a lot of people say they knew everything. They knew absolutely everything, and they come back, and the moment they try to say anything, they can't say nothing. So it's the same sort of thing where it's like that feels the same to me as that, but it's a bit different. Because what happens is, I put psychedelics, you know everything, but once you come back, the words can't come out, because there's no words to explain it. So in a strange way, that is very much like this experience that the baby would have. That it's got everything inside of it, but it can't come out. So in a strange way, it feels to me like when you come out of a psychedelic experience, or even a lucid dream or an out-of-body experience, one of those really deep things, in a strange way, it makes you realise that humans are like babies, in that humans haven't got the skills to put into words what they've experienced. But that doesn't mean they haven't experienced it. So even that, you can look at that as it's almost like the baby is waking up. It's almost like when you die, when you wake up, when you're born, that's like you're coming out of an experience. So what I'm thinking is, when you're dead, you know everything. As soon as you get born as a baby, you still know everything, but you can't say anything. which is the same as this psychedelic thing. As a human, you can go into the psychedelic realm, which I think the psychedelic, the dream realm, the spirit realm, it's all the same thing. So what happens is the human goes into the psychedelic realm, has all the information, but when it comes back, it's basically coming back as like a baby. So, and then I've put here, this is why automatic writing and dream diaries are so important. I've put you have to basically document everything, because if you don't document it, you will end up forgetting it. Or what also happens is the mind starts sort of interpreting it differently. So I wanted to talk about this experience I had last night as well. So it was what happened was, I went to sleep and I woke up and I had some cereal, and because that's my little routine. One of my little lucid dreaming routines is I wake up naturally about midnight. I'll go and have some cereal. I'll do a little bit of writing in my automatic writing journal. And last night what I did was I read a chapter in this book, The Art of Dreaming. And then what I also did was I stared at, I've got this Pikachu teddy up on my shelf. And I was staring at this Pikachu teddy just before I went to bed. And what was happening was, this Pikachu, he's got these eyes, which is little white bit with a big black bit. So basically I was staring at his eyes, and what I've noticed is if you can basically stop blinking. It's weird. And what starts to happen is it starts to go foggy, and then everything starts to like shimmer, and it's like you see like a sort of you see like a shimmering effect around everything. But what was happening last night was this Pikachu's eyeball was like coming out of the only way I can describe it is it was as if Pikachu's eyeball, the energy of Pikachu's eyeball was coming out of the eyeball. And what was happening was it was like floating. His eyeball was sort of floating. It looked very much like a spirit coming out of a body, and it was like floating down, and I was following it. Now normally what happens is if I follow something like that, it disappears, but this one didn't. And every time I went back to the eyeball, it just kept doing it. And I thought how weird it was. And it reminded me of the other day I was sun gazing, and what happened was the sun, there's certain, right at the start of the day and right at the end of the day, you can stare at the sun without it hurting your eyes. So the sun was in this perfect position, and I was staring at it, and the sun looked exactly like the way this Pikachu's eye was looking. Like you can start to see like the shimmering of the sun. But the strangest thing was the sun started turning into a hexagon. It was so weird. I've not seen that before. But it was quite strange how last night this sort of... So what I'm thinking, what my thought about that is, what's happening there is staring is actually breaking the dream. So I'm thinking we're inside of a dream. And it's almost like every time you blink, that's almost like that's almost like refreshing the visual. So if you stop blinking, what I'm thinking is it's almost like we're a computer, and inside of us we can store a certain amount of data coming in through the eyeballs, and if you don't blink, what happens is it gets to a point where the data gets because I used to do programming at university, and there's these things called arrays, but you don't even need an array. An array would be like this, all your memory banks, but if you've got like a variable, it would have a certain amount of data that it can hold. So what I'm thinking is blinking is the way that the system refreshes itself. So if you stop blinking, at some point, what happens is it's like the system breaks down, very much like in a dream. If you're in a dream and you stare at something for too long, it starts to like wobble, and what will happen is the dream will just break, and you'll normally wake up. So it's the same sort of thing as this. Like when you're staring at something, it starts to like wobble. So I'm just thinking to myself, what would happen if you could somehow stare at something for hours? Would it be possible to basically like break reality? Yeah, I know it sounds mental, but this is just my thoughts on it at the moment. But I'm seeing a lot of similarities between experiences in the waking state and experiences in the dream state, and that's something I've noticed for the last few years. Like, I've only ever done psychedelics once, and I went into that as like a sort of almost like a detective. I wanted to see if the psychedelic realm felt the same as the dream realm, because I'd already noticed that the dream realm was very similar to the deep meditation state, and the psychedelic realm for me it's the same sort of thing. So I'm thinking maybe it's like, what I'm thinking is maybe like the spirit realm is like a box, and then what you've got is you've got different sort of layers of it. So you've got like the dream state, you've got the psychedelic realm, and you've got like deep meditation. So it's almost like they're different experiences, but you're still in the same box, which I'm thinking is the spirit realm. So I think when you die, you're all that's happening is you're going into this spirit realm. So if it's a cube, it could be like one side is, it might even be something like that or something. Like it's one side of, maybe, I'm just trying to work this out, like sort of what I'm thinking. But I've got this thought of like, we're inside of like a cube, and one side of it could be like the psychedelic. Because I'm thinking life is just like one side of it. So it's not like you've got life and death. It's almost like life is actually still part of the spirit realm somehow. So what it makes me think is that there is no way out of this box. But then I'm thinking there is. Because I can't help but think that the whole point of this, I can't help but think that we are inside of like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle, and the puzzle is, can you get yourself out of the box? But then the thing I think about that is, you've probably got boxes within boxes. So even if you did get yourself out of the box, you'd still be in a box. And as I've said before, I got a funny feeling that in the end, one of these boxes will end up being a box within the box. So it's almost like it's just self-contained, never-ending. So these false awakenings, I can't help but think that these false awakenings are super important. The amount of false awakenings I've had where I'll wake up and I think I'm awake, and there'll be somebody in my bedroom it's almost like it's a bit like, imagine having a driving instructor. It's a bit like you wake up you think you're awake, so what I do is I start writing in my dream diary, and something will happen and I'll realise I'm still dreaming. Very often, at that moment, I will notice that, or it might even be that I've noticed someone in my room, which makes me realise I'm in a false awakening. And very often, that person seems to be like some sort of, like what I would class as like a driving inspector. Somebody who sort of, it's almost like they're either keeping watch on you or sort of rating your performance. Something like that. It's very strange. But I've done a little smiley face here. But what I've noticed, when my first ever experience of lucid dreaming actually came from false awakenings. So even that, and what happened as well was, I found on my computer, an old, I think it's from 2002 or something. It's a text file I had on my computer full of like dreams from 2002 or something. And this was way before I even knew anything about lucid dreaming or anything. And one of the things I wrote in it, I said, I keep having that dream where the lights don't work. And what that is actually a false awakening. Because if you're in a dream, if you put the lights on, am I dreaming? Very often the lights won't work properly, and that's how you can realise you're dreaming. So what's happening is, back in like 2002, I was obviously having loads of false awakenings, but because I wasn't keeping a dream diary or doing any dream work, I was just waking up and, like what I was talking about before, it was just sort of disappearing. But because I had wrote about it on my computer, I remembered it. But what it says to me is, how many experiences are we having in our life which we're forgetting? So there's a part of me that thinks false awakenings are like a way of trying to make you forget. It's either false awakenings are, because every time you have a false awakening, you have to wake yourself back up again. And every time you waken yourself up, there's a chance you're going to lose some of the information. Because if you've got to go through 10 false awakenings, and each time you're writing out your dream, what I've noticed is, very often, unless you've got like a massive desire to remember the dream, by the time you finally wake up, you can't really remember all of it. So that's what's been making me think, are these false awakenings the system's way of trying to stop you? Or like the dreams, because I think the dream itself is conscious. So it might be that it's you, like your higher self. Maybe the dream realm is actually like us, our higher self, and we don't want ourselves to wake up or something like that. So it's almost like these false awakenings it's us trying to make us not remember. But then I also wonder if what's happening is it's this thing where you're going to sleep within dreams, so you're going into like different realities. So you've actually got to wake yourself up. You've got to like go in reverse to wake yourself up through these realities before you can get back to the main reality or something. But what also makes you think is, how do you not know what we're inside of right now could be like a form of a false awakening? Yeah, that would be mad. Alright, yeah, there's this TV show on Netflix called Behind Her Eyes. I won't spoil it or nothing. It's brilliant though, and it is to do with like lucid dreaming and stuff. So I would definitely recommend Behind Her Eyes. The sad thing here is I really want to talk about something, but I can't. No, that's a shame. But yeah, there was something in that which I would love to know what you thought about it. And I can't even say nothing. So maybe what I'll have to do is a spoiler episode, talking about Behind Her Eyes. Yeah, I might do that actually. I'll do that in the future. Maybe I'll do it next week. Yeah, maybe I will. So I think next week's podcast will be like a spoilery episode about Behind Her Eyes, because there's one moment in it that I want to talk about which is quite fascinating. Yeah. So I think that's it really. Yeah, what I'm thinking is all of this stuff seems separate, but I think it's all linked. False awakenings, I think, are linked to the death realm, are linked to the death process. Because I think false awakenings show you how you can actually wake up, think something's real, but you're still asleep. So like, and then the out of body. Oh, did I say about last night's out of body experience? It was amazing. Because what happened was what I've noticed is that this also goes into the book, The Art of Dreaming. He talks about in here how sorcerers of the past, well, not just of the past, but what this bloke, Don Juan, had learnt from the sorcerers was, we are like a ball of energy. So really, what we are is like this ball of like an awareness or something. And the sorcerers can basically stretch this ball into like a long shape. So what happens is, instead of being stuck in this ball of awareness, you can have like a string of awareness. So in other words, you can experience multiple things at once, instead of being limited by one position sort of thing. What was he was talking about, which I was going to just say something then, but what was it he was talking about? Yeah, inside of here, he's talking about all this sort of thing. He's talking about how if you look at something too long, it starts to basically he's talking about how you can't look at things too long in the dream realm. So what happened was, in this out of body experience, what I've noticed is you can sort of like move your. That's what I was going to say. You can like move your energy around in the dream realm. But what I'm thinking is it's this ball of energy awareness thing that is in this book. So what I'm thinking is, are we just like a ball of awareness, which is going into the body? And so what happened was, what I've noticed is you can sort of move this awareness around. So this is why I think sometimes in a dream you're in third person view, and then the next minute you're in first person view. I feel like all you're doing is you're moving like the awareness. The strange thing is though, you can actually experience third person and first person at the same time, which I think is what he's talking about in this book. Instead of being just a sphere, you can actually become like a string. So it's almost like you become a line of spheres, so you can actually experience multiple things at once. But what I've noticed is you can move this around. So what I've noticed is you can like when I go back to sleep after waking up, there's very often you're going to sleep and you know you're like lucid. You know that you're going to sleep. You're asleep, but you're awake. And at that moment, you can actually put your awareness into the top of your head, and like you can push yourself. What I'm thinking is, what you're doing is you're pushing your. I feel like you're pushing your sort of spirit body or something out of your head, and then you'll go zooming. Now, in the past, very often that it's like you've got like a G-force going as well. So you're not just seeing it, you're sort of really feeling it. In the past, very often that would be so there's so much energy in the G-force feeling that I would actually wake up. But last night I was doing something from this book. So instead of like focusing on the energy, the feeling of it, I was just almost like just observing the experience. And what was happening was, it was as if I was going through the universe and I was just going into planets. And it was just beautiful. And all these planets were like covered in craters and stuff. But there's this one moment where it's as if everything was made of cubes. And I could see all these cubes like zooming past me. And I was thinking, I wanted to look at these cubes. So it's weird. I was looking at the cubes without looking at them, and I thought I really want to look at these cubes, but I knew that if I looked at the cubes, I would have got like sucked into the cubes. So, but this is what he's talking about in this book. He's talking about like basically you've got to learn the skill of your awareness. It's really cool, it is. I'm going to see if I can find something that I've marked off. Here, look, watch this. The energy body deals with energy in terms of energy. There are 3 ways in which it deals with energy in dreaming. It can perceive energy as it flows, or it can use energy to boost itself like a rocket into unexpected areas. That's what I'm saying. Last night, that thing where you push, it's like you push yourself into the top of your head. That's that rocket feeling. Or it can perceive as we ordinarily perceive in the world, which is when you have one of these dreams where it's more real than real. So I think he's talking about here, like going into third person and third person. What does it mean to perceive energy as it flows, he said? It means to see. It means that the energy body sees energy directly as a light, or as a vibrating current of sorts, or as a disturbance, or it feels it directly as a jolt, or as a sensation that can even be pain. So I don't know if you've ever had this where, again, it goes back into false awakenings. What happens is, let's say I've had 4 false awakenings. There's a party. What happens is you just become so determined to wake yourself up. I think what happens is you can actually jump. You can jump over potential false awakenings that you would have had to have gone through. In other words, it's almost like instead of going through the false awakenings like the dream would want you to, you can jump yourself straight into your body, straight back to your body. What I've noticed is whenever I do that, what'll happen is I'll wake up with like a jolt. And also sometimes when you're going to sleep, you're just about to go to sleep and you sort of you get that jolty feeling. Well, I think that what that is, is the spirit body, which is like this ball of energy. It's that ball of energy getting back into the body. So maybe what's happening is if you're forcing yourself awake, maybe there's so much energy that energy is actually coming out as a physical jolt or something. But that's it. I think that's it for this one. It's just brilliant. I recommend this book as well. Some of it can be quite sort of it doesn't make sense, some of it, but it does make sense in a strange way. Yeah, that's weird as well. This book actually is very much like sort of it's very much like trying. It's got that same essence of it, of like when you're trying to explain something but you can't explain it, or somebody's trying to explain something but they can't explain it, but you can feel what they're trying to explain. That's what this book is like for me. Is the goal of dreaming to intend the energy body, I asked, suddenly empowered by some strange reasoning. One can certainly put it that way. Is the goal of dreaming to intend the energy body? In other words, all that is, but basically, this is what Robert Wagner talks about as well. See, I can't explain that, but it's to do with the awareness. In other words, when you go to sleep, you're going to be doing things, whether you like it or not. So when you die, you're going to be going somewhere, whether you like it or not. So I'm thinking, if you're leveling up your awareness, potentially you could change where you go, like when you're sleeping and also when you die. Don't try to force yourself to be aware of falling asleep. Let your energy body do it. To intend is to wish without wishing, to do without doing. Now this is where the paradoxical things come in. I don't know how many times I've been in a meditation or something, and you can feel that there's an out of body experience coming, and then I try so hard to go out of body that I end up not going out of body. So the way you go out of body is by not trying to go out of body, but you want to go out of body. Yeah, it's that thing of the way to let go is to just let go of trying to let go. But you can't because you want to let go. So you sort of feel like you're trapped in this thing. But at some point what happens is you sort of get so frustrated, you say sod it. And at that moment you let go. Yeah. It's funny, it is. But that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed that. Little Dennis, he's going to get us out of this one. He was in his house. Doing! That's cool, that is. So that was episode 248. A little dump and doodle about the dream realm, the spirit realm. And this week's inspirational quote is going to come from the book The Art of Dreaming by Castaneda. I'm going to turn to a page that I haven't read yet and see what lilDENNiS is. Ooh, here he goes. Here he goes, look. Don't say anything. At the third gate, rationality is responsible for the insistence of our energy bodies on being observed with... That's it, that's the word. Yeah, observe. Observe. What is the quantum physics and everything saying? What the quantum physics is saying is stuff only exists because you observe it. Well, this is what I think's happening here. When he was talking about that thing about the point of dreaming is the awareness, or the intent, or something. That's the same sort of thing. Like the only thing that really exists is some sort of something that's observing stuff. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to get a quote from. I'm going to get a quote from here. Here we go. Look. Look, I'm just going to read this bit. Don Juan stated that as we tighten the control over our dreams, we tighten the mastery over our dreaming attention. He was right in saying that the dreaming attention comes into play when it is called, when it is given a purpose. Its coming into play is not really a process, as one would normally understand a process, an ongoing system of operations or a series of actions or functions that bring about an end result. It is rather an awakening. Something dormant becomes suddenly functional. Well, this is what I was talking about with the baby. And it's the same thing. So the baby, in the future, it might forget all the information, but the information is still inside the baby. Like how we might forget our dreams, but the dreams are still inside of us. So all that happens is, you can basically, all you're doing is, you're remembering something that you didn't realise you had forgot. And that's what he's saying here. Something dormant becomes suddenly functional. So this whole thing, it seemed like just a big sort of psychological... I wouldn't be surprised if all that really exists is some sort of ball of awareness. And that's it. Yeah. So this week's inspirational quote. Something dormant becomes suddenly functional. Don Juan.